You're fine.
Great. Good morning, everyone. This is joint rules on Wednesday, March 23rd. So we have one agenda item this morning, and it's about our next steps in reopening the State House. And so we've been over the past month, 2 months, I've lost track of time, been slowly, step by step, reopening the building. And we had not been able to get to the one item last week, which was around room and room capacity. And I think because our separate rules committee has been, our House rules and Senate rules has been doing more in terms of our chambers. I think what I'll just recommend is that the House and Senate rules committees, if they so choose, to meet to talk about opening up the chamber a little bit more and things that are in their jurisdiction. I don't think we need to take time to talk about those chamber issues, but I know that is something we've talked about doing. So then that leads to the next item up, which is around the mask policy. So members of the committee have gotten a letter from Representative Sherman and others. We've gotten, it's posted and I think emailed out from operations.
It's on your webpage.
Yep. So staff have been weighing in from Ledge Council and operations. So you should have that in your email, and it's also posted. And so I'll just start by giving you an update about where we've been with just high level with cases, and then just open it up for discussion. So last week, we had the highest number of staff out with COVID. And this week we have 3 members on the House side, I don't know about the Senate, who have COVID. So we are continuing to monitor. We've only had 1 instance in the House side of community spread. And now the Senate is back fully this week, which is great. So this will be a good test for us to see how things are working with everyone finally back in the building. So that's just a high level overview of where we stand with cases and spread in the building, and we'd love to open it up for discussion.
May I just say, for those of us who haven't seen these emails, I mean, I haven't seen what Ledge Council, how they weighed in, or it would be great to hear what staff feel. I mean, I understand the facts of who's out, but what happens, how are they weighing in terms of what they're asking?
So I would say that from the Legislative Council perspective, that in general, they want to keep the mask operations as mixed. I think just like all of us, everyone's coming in with their own experiences. And for some people, they still have children who are not vaccinated. Some people feel ready to have masks off. It's a mix, just like how everyone is approaching this. But I would say on the Ledge Council side, it was preferred to keep the mask policy in place.
Right. And do we have another fact of how the new variant is playing out in we have a senator out today because schools seem to be, now that they're going mask free, schools are getting hammered again. So we have a senator out today with a child at home because of COVID. Do we have a sense from Mark Levine or from the Department of Health about the new case variant with this new variant EB5 or, no, not EB5.
No, oh my God.
It is sort of a variant of COVID, EB5.
I think it's BA2.
BA2, right.
Yeah.
So BA2, and I understand from National Public Radio that BA2 is now the largest number of cases, is increasingly the largest number of new cases.
We do not have that information. We can absolutely ask him for that.
Okay, to me, that would be a key piece of a science-based decision in terms of what if it's on the rise in Vermont or not.
Yeah.
Since we go ahead.
Well, I think that we started all of this by saying that we're going to follow the science.
Yeah.
Well, based on what I hear from the science, I hear from the CDC, I hear from Dr. Levine that masks aren't necessary. Very simple. The rest of the world in the United States is going without masks. The administration, my understanding, at least from talking to several departments, as of the 14th, weren't wearing masks. Why are we wearing masks?
I'm just opening this up for
Well, I mean,
people to
that,
give their
that, that,
comments
again,
on
to
the
me is
committee.
is a fundamental question at this point. Now, people who believe that it's desirable to wear masks can certainly wear masks. There's nothing to prohibit it. But it's time to end this. And yes, it is possible, the way variants vary, that this could change. And when it changes, we can always put the mask back on if it becomes necessary. But right now, all the indications, the rest of the world, at least in the United States, is following the CDC guidance, and we should too.
McCoy?
So I was pretty much gonna say what Randy said, you know, you know, the masking in schools, they went back in a year and a half without being vaccinated, and they're now lifting mask requirements in schools, and the state has come out with the CDC, you know, it's mask optional. I mean, if people really feel that they need to wear a mask, go ahead, wear a mask. If you feel you need to double mask now, go ahead. I don't have an issue at all with that. But as Senator Brock said, CDC guidelines now, our Vermont Health Department guidelines are, you don't have to wear a mask. Mask is optional. And I don't know why we hold that building to a higher standard than those citizens that elect us to sit in the chairs. I have a huge problem with that we insulate ourselves. And the notion that, well, we're coming from all states of, all counties of the state. People travel this every weekend. They go skiing to Stowe. They come down to Killington and they ski. I mean, that's just not an issue I'm gonna buy. We need to follow the rules like every other citizen of the state where this is optional.
Representative Long and then McCarthy.
So I would just share things that I hear in the building and in my office. One of the reasons why it's different for us in the State House is the fact that people are in closed committee rooms, tight quarters, long periods of time with poor ventilation for air circulation. And I do hear quite a bit of concern about removing the mask mandate because of the conditions that they're working in this building. It is a little harder for people to get out of the building, open the windows, get fresh air, and you know, we're back into the mode of the way we've always worked. We're sitting in committees, tight shoulder to shoulder for hours at a time. So just put that on there.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like, I am so ready to not have to spend all day working with a mask on. But what I'll say is that, you know, over the weekend, I talked to a couple of our members who are older or have an immunocompromised family member in their household that basically said, I don't know that I would want to come to the State House right now and work if there continue to be cases among the staff and other legislators, which there are right now, and we reduce the mitigation measures that we have, like masking. So, you know, that's what I'm hearing from some of our members. And, you know, I want to balance that with, you know, I hear that the CDC and Dr. Levine's guidance around masks being optional. But what I also have heard him and other experts say recently is that, you know, workplaces, people need to make their own decisions that are right for the circumstances that they have. And that while the state's not going to require the masks, that, you know, individual employers and groups of people should make the decisions that are right for them. And right now, you know, we have some members who I think would have a really hard time coming and doing the work that we all need to do together if we drop the mask mandate right at this moment.
Senator Mazza, Alan?
What would be the criteria for not wearing a mask? What are the standards? I seem to agree with the folks that say it's time, but so what would we follow if we don't do it now? What would have to happen to do away with masks?
We would have to take a vote.
Oh, I mean, you think that's the way it works? I mean, is there any other standards we follow or just a vote?
Well, I think
the question is a good one, Senator, because this is what we've struggled with the whole time, as we have tried to have a significant number of people weigh in to give us guidelines for when, when to mask, when not to
Right,
mask,
yeah.
and that's been difficult to pin down. And so we had tried to, just to remind everybody who, all the people who may be watching, we had tried to get some testimony on the record about what the threshold would be. And I think, that's going to continue to be a challenge, because I think, one of the things that Senator Clarkson brought up is this new variant. I think it's going to continue to go like this, so that we're going to have to decide when to pivot back to masking. But in terms of like having an expert weigh in on the threshold, we haven't been able to get that information. And so the speaker and I spoke about this yesterday. I let her know my own feelings about it, is that I want to create a place where our staff feel comfortable working. I want to make sure that some of the people in our chamber who have immunocompromised people at home, we're in the same situation with some of our senators. And I also understand that we can't go on like this forever. So my sense of the Senate is that we are split, just like society is split right now. And the only thing that I would say is my experience when I go home to my hometown is actually most businesses still in Brattleboro, people are masking indoors. So that is like, so we're all coming from our own situations. I'm sure that's reflective of a lot of different things, but it is, it's not actually true, I think, universally in Vermont, that masking is not happening in businesses anymore. So I am, in a position right now of just feeling like I will vote in concert with what the majority of this group feels. We're not the czars. We collectively make this decision. And so it's a tough one, because we have a split chamber, just like the House does. So, and I think the important thing for all of us to remember is, one, as Representative McCoy and Senator Brock said, everyone could continue to wear masks. That's going to be their preference if we go forward and eliminate the masking requirement. But we also have to be really clear that we're not through this pandemic. I sat this morning with a friend over breakfast, hearing about two close friends of ours who now contracted COVID in the last couple of weeks here in Montpelier, and now have long haul COVID with debilitating symptoms. And so that is still real. We are still struggling with that. So again, this is a tough one for all of us, but I really want to make sure we hear from everybody in the group about how we're feeling about this.
Have they had their shots? I mean, the people that.
They had had their shots, they had boosters, and they contracted it from, in the one case, they contracted it from one of their children, bringing it home from school. And the child did not have a hard case, but this is a healthy 40-something-year-old woman who's now dealing with incredibly tough long haul COVID. And similarly, a friend of mine in her 70s now, like, literally cannot think clearly because of the COVID she's contracted. And so it's still here, it's still real. I understand we cannot stay in a defensive stance forever. So we're just trying to sort it out, just like everybody else in the country.
I just want to also share that my concerns are just slightly growing right now, frankly, because I've had more conversations with people in the last 5 days about either a spouse, a child, themselves, all, I gotta go get a PCR test, I can't come in because I've got symptoms, and also testing positive. And that is actually not the norm from what I have experienced. I mean, I've seen an uptick in the last few days of people reaching out to me saying, I've got symptoms, my husband has it, and on from there. And that concerns me quite a bit right now. And frankly, I couldn't agree more. I'd love to get this darn mask off, but I also want us to get work done. And I don't want us to be disrupted by a lot of folks being out. And everybody tells me over and over how much better it is to be in person. I have not had anyone say to me, why are we not still on Zoom? Everybody wants to be in person. And I don't want to throw a lot of people back onto Zoom, because I do think we get more work done and better work done when we're in person. And I wouldn't mind, I can't speak for anybody else, but to say, I wouldn't mind putting this off for another week or so, before we actually make a decision. Just to see, I also said positivity rates have been increasing slightly. I don't know what they are today, but I have seen positivity rates go up, and that also mimics sort of what I'm seeing anecdotally in our body.
Other thoughts, comments from around the table? Senator Clark?
Yeah, I think it's such a fluid, it continues to be fluid. And we also know, speaking of fluids, that this is how we spread it. This is where you spread it. You spread it from the water droplets that you exhale. Now, people can protect themselves by wearing a mask, but this is, from all the science we now know, this is the primary way to prevent getting COVID, this mask. And it's clear that being vaccinated and boosted is great for many, but there are still ways this nasty bugger can get in. So I'm a little concerned about this new variant. I'm a little concerned about schools taking, masks off and the growth in school cases, which I'd love to know what those are, because I understand anecdotally they're substantial. And I'd like to get a better sense of where this new variant is in Vermont. I'm sorry, but I also I'd love to get somebody to come and talk to us about it, who's maybe not the administration, but somebody who's, I don't know, Mark Levine, if you, somebody who knows what's happening with that variant in Vermont. I guess that would be Mark.
All right, so I'm hearing a request to come back to this next week and have Dr. Levine in.
I gotta object to this because we have been in this state house for how many weeks now? It's January 18th, we've come in, we've done our business, and it's some total of, I don't know, gotta be under 10 people for the last 8 or 10 weeks that we've been here, which is phenomenal. So, and the caseloads keep dropping, and that was at the highest peak, mind you, when we went through up, and it has dropped considerably. I don't understand why a mask optional policy can't be put in place. I've spoken to you, Madam Speaker, about, I understand the Senate just came back in full this week, that's my understanding. And I said that I would acquiesce for this week masking, but come next Tuesday when we walk in that building, we are mask optional, just like the rest of them, just like our schools are, just like when you walk in the grocery stores and nobody has masks on anymore. What is this? In my Rutland County.
Not in my.
Well, in Rutland County it is.
They are all
Everybody-
it's totally mixed across the state.
Right.
It's totally mixed.
So
Go ahead.
We said we're gonna follow the science. That's how all this started, follow the science. Well, what the science is telling us is masks should be optional. They're not necessary. The CDC says so. Publicly, Dr. Levine has said so. And the rest of the world, in terms of Vermont, in terms of business and so on, is moving in that direction, and certainly the public is. You go in St. Albans, Swanton, and Franklin County, the stores in which everybody used to be masked, it's not the case. Few people are, but not everybody. The employees are not. So these things are changing, and the only place that I see that has 100% mask mandate that I'm aware of right now is the State House.
I know.
Basically, as you look at community spread as reported by the CDC on a county by county basis, every county in Vermont is low risk, except at last look, 2 which were medium risk, and those are mask optional as well. Every county in Vermont.
Look around the table for other. Right, so I'm hearing from Representative McCoy about a week, like giving this a week with the Senate, but the strong feelings about saying Tuesday it changes. I'm hearing from others saying let's just wait and see and come back on Tuesday. So how do people feel about meeting 8 a.m., 8:30 on Tuesday to come back and to have the vote?
Well, Madam Speaker,
Go ahead.
I think there's another piece here that I think we need to discuss, whether it's at this meeting or a meeting later this week, is that if in fact we vote to eliminate the mask mandate for the State House, there have to be other precautions put in place about people not coming into the building with symptoms. Because one of the things that we were doing at the beginning of the pandemic is we were checking
Right.
symptoms, we were checking temperature, we were making sure that if in fact we move towards, being in close spaces with each other, that there have to be some guidelines by which people with symptoms are not coming in the building. And that has to be part of this discussion from where I sit. Given the close quarters, given that so many staff members have kids who are not vaccinated, I really feel like that has to be part of the discussion. It can't be just change the spigot, pivot. And so just wanted to bring that in. That is the only way I would feel comfortable moving in that direction at this point.
So
Go ahead, Senator Clark.
there are two thoughts. One is, you mean somebody checking a vaccination and health? as they
I'm
enter
talking
the building.
about symptoms. I'm talking about people not walking into the building if they have a runny nose, if they have a cough, if they have a fever. These were the things, we had guidelines on the door.
Right, yeah,
You will not come in this building like this. I think if we're gonna pivot,
yeah, we need
there
to.
has to be some other precautions in place. I've got people in my chamber who have very sick people at home.
Yeah.
And I would like to have some other precaution in place, because in addition to being legislators, we're also, in many ways, we're employers. We have people who work with us and for us. And it's important to me that we are putting precautions in place.
Second thing is, I mean, it's sort of, Randy's right. I mean, the organizations we have relied on and the institutions have certainly moved in the direction of recommending masks be optional. But I think we're also just coming from how people are feeling. So I think we're weighing at the moment science and how and people's frustration. Have we done it? I mean, I know this sounds silly, but I'd love to do, given that we're sort of down to this, I'd love to do a doodle poll of both staff and members and find out where people are, because we represent, I mean, we had a chairs meeting yesterday. I have a pretty good sense that chairs meeting, I would say 3/4 of those chairs, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I felt that 3/4 of those chairs were supportive of keeping masks. But that's just the chairs. I mean, we haven't really asked our members, the whole Senate, how they feel, unless you have a good sense of your caucus. I haven't directly asked our caucus. I'd like, it would be great to do a doodle poll, and so by the end of the week, we have I don't know, it strikes me that would be a sensible way to have people weigh in. I mean, because we may find that actually 80% of everybody is more comfortable than we are. I'm less comfortable, but.
Yeah. So I think to that front, I think more conversations need to happen to gauge and to get people thinking about this and thinking about what that would look like in the building. I know we're having conversations with our caucus as well. It's all over the place. Senator Brock.
Our caucus has weighed in and believes that being mask-free is appropriate. And second, I just question the notion of using doodle polls to make public health decisions.
Well, I don't disagree, but actually we're now at an opinion basis here. I mean, we're weighing science and the organization, but we're also weighing what we know prevents it. And we are weighing people with sick family, with all sorts of circumstances that make them very leery of serving with other people who they have no idea what they're coming from or what their health.
Well, I would
situation
argue
is.
that exists in any employment arrangement in Vermont. And the legislature is no different than any other employer or any other workplace.
Putting all the evidence that we see based on what our public health authorities tell us and what the community spread is in the area. And the rates of hospitalization and ICU utilization tells us that this is not necessary.
So I don't disagree with Senator Brock's comments about the larger statewide public health situation, but in our building right now, our staff, our fellow legislators, we have people who have COVID that have probably been in the building while they've been in their incubation period. And we have that right now at this moment. And we also have at least a small number of members who have a high degree of anxiety about reducing the mitigation measures right now. And just for this brief period of time, while the world is moving in the direction of going mask optional, I've heard several people talk about mask free. I really want us to be talking about a mask optional policy and setting those norms. But right now, I think we would have some people who feel very uncomfortable about doing the job that we all come here to do if we get rid of the mask mandate right now. And for me, it's more important to create a space where our fellow legislators feel safe and be able to deal with my personal inconvenience and the inconvenience of other people who are healthy and probably at almost no risk of serious illness or hospitalization, even if they do contract COVID. So it's about balancing those things, even when we know all of the science and all the population health data. I'd have a tough time looking in the eye a couple of the people that I talked to over the weekend and saying, I'm sorry, we have too many people that just can't stand wearing the mask anymore. So, you're gonna have to, make the choice between whether you wanna come in that environment and do your work as a legislator or stay home and protect your family member. I would have a hard time doing that this week.
Every resolution we passed has said we're gonna follow CDC guidelines, we're gonna follow Vermont Department of Health guidelines, except this one. And that's what I don't understand. It's mask optional. If you feel that uncomfortable, wear a mask. I'm not saying you cannot wear a mask. If you feel more comfortable, double mask. I mean, if Randy wants to wear a double mask and I'm sitting next to him, I feel perfectly comfortable sitting next to Randy Brock if I choose not to wear a mask. So I'm fully vaccinated, I've got the booster, and if I, if nobody knows how people are contacting COVID, and it seems the cases are much more mild, and if they do test positive, some people don't even, they feel fine, but they take the 5 days off and then they come back to work. If we're going to say for every resolution, we're going to follow the CDC guidelines, which the mask policy was in one of our resolutions, then the CDC guideline now and our Vermont Health Department guideline is mask optional. So I don't understand why this committee is now doing a 180 turn and not following the guidelines.
So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about mask optional as opposed to mask free.
It's mask
Optional, but I just,
Absolutely.
is that, I just want to make sure we're all, okay.
Absolutely.
If you want to wear a mask, wear a
Wear a
mask.
mask. I mean, I'm not saying I'm gonna rip off my mask next week.
No, I know, I just wanted to make sure we were all
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
saying the same thing when we talk.
Yes.
Representative McCarthy, what would convince you to, because I know you made a good case, what would trigger your decision to change?
I think if we just give it a little bit more time so that we make sure that in our house and in the in what I mean is in the General Assembly, we don't have so many cases that are active, that would help a lot, I
How
think.
many cases, I do you have a figure in mind that what has to change your mind? That's just,
I mean, this is the thing where it's like weighing all of this stuff. I really think it's just like some of the people in our caucus in the House could really use just a little bit more time to get used to this idea of the world making this transition. And what would really help is if there were fewer people that were calling the speaker and saying, I really need permission to be on the Zoom screen because I tested positive, my spouse tested positive, I have a kid who tested positive at home, and we still have that with staff. And I mean, is it true, Madam Speaker, that the highest number of staff that tested positive was just last week?
Yes.
They were out this whole thing. So that's what I'm wrestling with is, yes, the world is moving into a direction of reducing mitigation measures, but we've still got it in our in our community here.
And I would just follow that, not speaking for you, but I would follow that with saying that we actually haven't had, I believe you said at the beginning, but I think it's true, only one incident of community spread in the building, although we've had a number of cases. And my belief is that the reason why we haven't had that community spread is because we've had a pretty strong and well-followed mask policy to prevent cases from spreading in the building. Now, we have had an uptick of a number of cases, both in staff, I believe, and in legislators and members, but we aren't seeing that spreading yet amongst each other in the building community spread. And I you know, I'm not the only one who believes that masks actually are working to keep that community spread down.
So, as I shared with you, the one place people do not wear masks is in the cafeteria when they're eating. And people tend to hang out more in the cafeteria because they don't need to wear it. And there hasn't been any community spread. Sitting in that cafeteria, people sit in there for an hour, talking on a table with people who have no masks on. Or you're gonna go up to your committee room, there's 5 or 6 people in your committee room without a mask because they're eating lunch there for the better part of an hour. I have a huge issue with us kicking the can down the road. And I acquiesced to this week, Senate's coming back. They've got 5 days here, you know, we're here a week. Well, several of you have been here right along.
Yes, thank you, Betty.
Yeah.
For 2 years, I have. Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yes. So I, you know, give it a week. And if you say that we're gonna come back and vote yes or no, I mean, obviously Randy and I are 2 of 8 votes here. But if you guarantee me that next Tuesday we're coming in and voting on a mask optional policy, because as I said, there's only 2. We only have 2 voices on this. I don't have.
That's what I'm putting out right now is a vote Tuesday morning and addressing Senator Balint's concerns, talking with the Sergeant at Arms office about what precautions at the door for people coming in. Senator Brock.
And I would just add, you know, all of the indications that we hear from public health authorities is that COVID is probably going to be endemic. It's not going to, if we sit around a week or 2 weeks or a month, it's not going away. People are going to get COVID. Some of them are going to get long COVID. That's just a reality. But in terms of the total numbers and the effect on society, that's what we're really talking about. And presumably that's why the public health authorities have come down the way they have.
I totally hear everything everyone is saying around the table. And we have all these different factors with us in terms of our age, our air quality system, measures and precautions we're taking in terms of capacity of rooms and things like that. I want to thank everyone because I think we have been working well together to come back step by step by step. And every week we've been doing something different. We just did something different in the House chamber with the screens, slowly transitioning, being methodical and careful about it. So let's plan on coming back on Tuesday morning. I think we could do 8:30.
I can't. I'm commuting up. I could be here by 9.
Okay, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. All right, so let's plan on 9 o'clock. We'll continue the conversation offline about precautions. We'll regroup and
I'll make sure our caucus, I get a full sense of our caucus.
talk to your members,
Ours are mask optional.
and we'll talk with the other caucuses as well.
May I just ask, Madam Speaker, I think also the letter, I think Connor sent an email about staff feelings about it, so I think that'll be in your inbox from Connor.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yep.
I didn't have that last time.
yes, so be on the lookout for that. All right.